Welcome to CJ's Chat Box. Today I'm so excited to introduce you to our new host, one of our new hosts here at TV6. So we are playing role reversal today. I get to interview Michael Taylor. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me on the program. It's a little bit of a role reversal. Yeah, one of the two new hosts for this day, replacing Lisa Hart, long time great person on the show. I got to meet and work with for about a month before the whole transition happened.
And I'm sure glad you didn't try to fill her shoes.
No.
Her heels, your toes would have been
She wouldn't leave
cracked.
me any, I asked.
All right. We got that base covered. But yes, it's been nice seeing you and meeting you. And so I wanted to know a little bit more about you, and maybe people in the village would like to know a little bit too. So were you born and raised here?
You know, I was born in New York on Long Island and lived in a place called Riverhead for the first 3 or 4 years of my life, which I don't really have too much of a recollection of. But then my mother they were divorced back then in 70 or 71, and came out here and she had family out here, so she settled down in Orange County, and I've been Orange County, grown ever since then. I'm a transplant, but really I don't really know any other home but Orange County,
Well, the part that you probably remember, hopefully, since it was that early, the smell of actual orange blossoms when they still had orange groves.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I lived in El Toro when it was still called El Toro, and you could smell the orange blossoms in the winterish, because they come in the season in January or February, and so you'd smell those orange blossoms in the late summer, early fall, and start to come in.
Yeah.
And, I loved that. I missed that a lot. In fact, when I was going to Cal State Fullerton, there was still enough kind of orange blossoms out there where, as I was doing my commute when I was going to school back then, I could still smell them on the way up to from El Toro to there too.
Well, we have the same alma mater because I went to Cal State Fullerton, and I'd come home at night. My last class was 10ish or whatever, and I lived in Laguna Beach. So you'd come up where the 133 is now, and there was a huge orange grove there.
Oh, yes.
So, of course, in May or whatever the month was, and the windows are down, and you smell that fragrance was just unbelievable. I truly, too, missed that. But now, like Orange County, it was full of oranges, so it was nice.
Lemons and bean fields and the Cedar Springs and the Irvine Ranch, and all those guys were doing their thing back then.
Yeah, it was a whole different world in Orange County then. So you went to school here in Orange County?
I went to school here. I graduated El Toro High School in 1985. And went to Cal State Fullerton, went to Rancho Cañada Elementary School and Serrano Junior High. So I said, I was here for the Leisure World days back when it was called Leisure World. This whole community was Leisure World.
So you've been familiar with us?
Oh, absolutely. The Globe used to be right there on the freeway.
Yes, it got a little rusty, but it was still there. One of the questions I wanted to find out, since you're now in this business, is when you were in high school, were there classes available, or did you see that you had an interest in journalism or writing or screenwriting or whatever? Did you see it then?
No, I didn't. The only thing I knew, I kind of discovered it, and I guess it came naturally to me, and I didn't realize I had the talent or realize I had an acumen towards it. Was I was in a creative writing class in one of my English classes, and around my senior year or so. And we were told to just write a story, just kind of make up a story with lots of metaphors and symbolism and that kind of stuff. And I just started writing something I thought was good. And my teacher pulled it out and used it as the example in the class. And that was probably I wasn't the best student in high school. I kind of cruised through. That was one of the first times someone said, this is worthy of I was like, wow, okay. So maybe I have a little bit of an acumen to do this, which I didn't really realize. And then my aunt, it was funny, was after I graduated high school, we were actually having a graduation dinner, and she says, I think you should try news and you're good at that stuff and you write. And I said, maybe I will. So I literally went to Saddleback College and signed up for the news stuff over there, the radio station they have there. I started to do the DJ thing and that kind of stuff. So I've kind of found my way in that direction. Yeah.
Well, again, sometimes it's what you have your heart set on because you think this is where you want to go. But when someone from the outside recognizes a skill or talent that you have and then, tells you about it and have a teacher and an aunt saying that I think you have, and then for you to believe them, to trust them.
I kind of trust it. I was kind of like, okay, well, because it was, when you're 17, 18, you don't know, you can barely tie your shoes.
Yes.
and so it's like, okay. And I think one of the things a lot of young people need to discover, and grandparents and parents share this knowledge. Hopefully they do. Sometimes it's like you don't know something until you're doing it. Like it's like how will I have to find I have to find my calling. You have to start doing things and then discover that's your calling. It's kind of like being a parent. I didn't know I was going to be a good parent or enjoy parent or that would be a calling in my life until I became one.
Right.
And so I think it's important to do things, to not to sit back and wait for the universe to come to you or to try to figure it out, or I haven't figured out what I want to do.
Yeah.
I think it's a real hard thing to do, but when you step into it and just start doing those things, you discover I do not like this. I definitely want to change gears, or I love this and I want to continue on this path.
We're very thankful that you decided to keep the children, because if you found out, I don't think I want to be a parent.
It worked out.
It's a little bit late then, but you can do it with a career. You can say, this doesn't fit me very well, so I think I need to try something else. It's still going to shake your world because you're counting on an income, but you still have the option to do that. But with parenting, it's pretty well done.
Yeah, it's
pretty well done.
And I think that's a good thing for students, especially at college. Like, I don't know what my major is going to be. It's okay. Most people aren't doing what their career path they started off in college. They're doing something else these days. I started this way and I went this way. So I think that knowledge of the older generation to the younger is like, don't worry about that. You'll find it.
But I went back after my divorce, so I was in my 40s. So the thing, again, you had to take general ed courses.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to because I thought, I'm going in this direction. Well, when you have to take this or that, and then you found out, I love marine biology. I didn't want to be a biologist, but I loved learning about that. So, and then I learned in child psychology, of course my son was already grown, was a little late, that we should not put the pressure on them when they're that young, 17, 18 years old, seniors graduating. What are you going to be for the rest of your life? And they go to college and spend 4 years doing something you're not going to do. So they do need to mature a little bit.
Right.
So for you understanding that, and also now because you are a teacher, then you can pass on that as your experience, saying, well, it was my experience that I had people tell me, sometimes parents or grandparents are too close and they tell you things and you want to believe them, but you don't feel like I want to be a lawyer. But for somebody like your teacher to tell you, you've got some good stuff
you
here.
mentioned I'm a teacher. I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but I'm a teacher at Santa Ana College as well. That's my full-time gig, and I do this in the mornings here and available. So I do try to impart a lot of that. Like these kids get so worried about achievement and what they've done and that kind of thing. It's like just it's going to be okay. You're going to find that way. Just keep trying stuff.
One of the things that really interested me about, I love to teach, and I don't teach in a school or a university, but I do teach, and I love it because and especially in today's world, probably always, but especially I'm so aware of in today's world, the confusion that's out there with the young people, and to have someone like yourself to be able to guide them, to me is such a plus. We need people that have got a sense of value and know how to conduct yourself and so on, to teach them. And again, to give them some assurance, you don't need to rush through this.
Right.
Enjoy this time of your life. Do what you need to do. Complete your courses, whatever. And then if you decide, I'm going to go some other, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it took me 7 total years to graduate college because I stopped for a little while. I decided I'm going to try this pathway, and I was like, I think I need a degree, and I went back, and so it didn't, somehow I'm not affected by that 3-year gap and when I should have graduated and I did. So it's like I think students and younger kids need to understand, like, listen, whatever your path is, as long as you're on that path and you're seeking and you're looking for discovery and you're figuring things out, you're going to find that. You're going to get there.
Maybe that 3 years, of course, sometime, because life experience you cannot buy. And you learn a lot of things along the way. My son went back to school. He had almost graduated from college, but then he went out working. And he worked in a bank. And so later on he went to finish his degree, and he came back and he said, the accounting teacher was saying such and this, and he said, I knew way different. And of course he'd been out long enough to say, he said, excuse me, but my experience has been totally different. Because he felt comfortable in doing that because he had experienced that. So life experience is very, very important.
Yeah, I needed some maturity, I think. I think when I finally did come back and dedicated myself to like finishing the last 2 years at Cal State Fullerton, I think I'd learned from experience that there's value here. And I think when you immediately get out of high school, because a lot of high school students are like, I can't wait to be done with school. It's like, I want to be done with that experience. And that was my attitude. Like, I don't want to keep going to school. And then I got some real world experience. I said, you know what, I can benefit from this. There is value in this, and that's what kind of brought me back. And so that gap year that people talk about, I think that's a real good thing for, go out there in the world. It's not a vacation. It shouldn't be a vacation, but go out there and experience what the world is really like.
Yeah. Go out there and work and struggle.
Yeah.
And try to live on what you're earning. I think that's one of the things that kids always hated was senior year. Oh, wait till you get out in the real world. They hated anyone that said that real world. But it is real, and nowadays a lot of the kids stay home, so they can afford to go to school and not have to get an apartment and so on. But that experience is out there, and you're going to experience it one way or another. Briefly, I know that I've never seen you without a smile. You're always smiling. You've got a beautiful smile. You got beautiful eyes. You're a very handsome man.
Oh, come on.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. We all know that. We've been watching you on TV. But I know that when you shared with me that there's been some major grief in your life.
Yeah.
So your wife passed.
And it's one of those things where my wife was diagnosed at the age of 30 with breast cancer, which was very young, and we just had my son, who was our second child, was only 8 months old, and so it was a very big surprise that would happen to someone so young. And she battled cancer, and she actually won the fight in terms of the breast cancer. She won. It was 10 years clean. She did everything right, and then it just came back, like cancer sometimes does, and it came back in her brain. She had an emergency surgery when we discovered the tumor, and she lived 4 more years, but it was a long, hard fight. And so it was really, really challenging. It's one of those things where you're when you're in it, it feels like a whirlwind.
Yes.
You're never going to get past it. And we very much grieved as a family. And a year later, my brother passed away as well. And it was just one of those things where it's like we were all hurting a lot, and we realized the one thing that was important that we all talked about, and we kept communicating. And her side of the family is full of therapists and psychology majors and doctorates and those kinds of things. And so it was we were in an environment where it's like we need to talk about this. Yes. We need to make sure we're okay. And I think the one thing important about grief is a couple things really. One, you have to go through it. Avoiding it, you're gonna numb the pain in some other way, and the avoidance of it is much worse than going through the pain. And then the other thing is, you should be thankful in all things, right? That's a biblical kind of teaching.
Yes.
And I'm not thankful for all things, but I'm thankful in all things.
Right.
So I'm thankful in terms of the fact that when I got through that and I came on the other end, I can speak to other people's pain when they come to me with a loss, even if it's a dog or a cat, and sometimes people trivialize those things. But the grief is grief, right? Exactly, right? And so when we understand that and we know it, the empathy is there. Oh, I feel bad for someone. No, I have empathy. I know what you're feeling right now. Yeah. And I've been there for other people in my life since then who are important to me and have gone through the same thing. And, just to hear someone and understand it and kind of just be there for people. Yeah. I think there's a gift in that. And if you can't find the gifts in the pain that we don't learn from things when they go great. We learn from the pain and mistakes of life the most, I think. And that's where I think I probably grew a lot and changed a lot in those few years.
The pain and the suffering is kind of, that's what shapes us, grounds us, if you will, and that you don't avoid it. You have to go through it, and that going through it, as you said, you never want to experience that again, but you take what experience meant to you and how it strengthened you, because again, then you can use it to help others. One thing about grief or suffering, that the people that you're going to talk to saying, I do understand, I've worn those shoes, there's something in the vibes or even in the language maybe that we're using, they know that we identify, and therefore they say, oh please, here's a question I have. that is, they can feel it, that you're not just saying the words.
Right, and I think it goes to so many other things in life. When you're addiction, like there's a reason why 12-step AA programs work for people.
Yeah.
I'm in a room full of alcoholics who understand exactly what I'm talking about when I say this.
Yeah.
Or I'm in a grief support room, and people, I don't have to explain myself to them. Well, here's what it was like when my wife died. Here's what it was like. They get it. They absolutely get it. And so when you hear a crazy story of someone in a 12-step program, all the people in there, oh yeah, I know exactly why you were doing that and why you know. And so there's kind of a judgment-free world of that, where I think people find comfort in that. Like you get other help in other areas from other experts, but when you have a like-minded people who've gone through those same experiences, the foxhole kind of mentality of that kind of thing, it's a true connection that you can't find anywhere else.
No. And again, the reason they're called support group is because they do support you as you go through the pain and the suffering of whatever the problem has been. So I wanted to mention that only because you're always smiling, you're always happy, and so when you told me about the pain, I thought, how did you get through that? And then you told me that you didn't avoid it, you went through it. So I thank you so much for sharing that with everyone. I want to go back to school a little bit before we finish up and stuff, only because of the opportunity. And I think you got your degree in screenwriting.
My degree is in broadcast journalism communications, but I'm actually going back for my master's right now in screenwriting.
Okay.
Yes.
So are you going to write a famous movie?
That would be wonderful. But the real reason behind it is, one, kind of like the ongoing life learning, like you talked about, taking classes and that kind of thing. The other thing is we have a screenwriting program at Santa Ana College, but we don't have a full-time discipline expert in that area. We've used some other people who've done, so we do part-timers. So I thought, it would be great for me to be able to, because I also co-chair the program, so it's great for me to have a little more understanding of the process, be able to teach it, and also be able to kind of develop the program a little better in terms of, these are the classes we need to be offering, this is the pathway, and to be able to kind of like have that professional development to be able to enhance the program there and all. So I thought it was a good idea. I wanted to get the master's. It also bumps up my pay too, so it's like, it's like, oh, that would be nice to have it's a higher pay scale. But the thought process of doing the screenwriting was like, we don't have anybody here. One of my strengths was writing. It always was, because I wrote for news and I wrote for televisions for so many years, so I know that world, but I didn't have a formal education in it. I just had here's how you do it, here's you go, and start writing, deadlines 5 o'clock for the newscast today, go.
Well, one of the things that, for me, because I do love creative writing, when I got my master's, you had to write theses and you had to write papers, but they all had to be fact. I'm not good at that. I mean, because I want to embellish but I want to be creative. So I've taken creative writing through Saddleback here at the Village, and now I have a class that I lead, I don't teach, in creative writing. And what's so interesting is the people that I've invited to come, they all say, I don't know how to write. So we come and I throw a prompt out there, which is my favorite thing, because then you're free. There's this imagination can just fly. And then they write, and then when they read it, if they choose to read it to the rest of us, everybody is just in awe, and they're shocked. And that to me,
like, hey, I can write.
I can write, and it's from their heart, and it's spontaneous. I think that's a key. That's why the prompts are so good. If you have too much time, you're going to edit it while you're thinking it, and that's again back to teaching college-age kids. Well, they're adults, but they're kids. Anyway, to tell them, let your imagination go wild. Let it be free. And that's what, putting stuff on paper that may or may not be good, don't edit it, just write it all out.
Just write it out, get it out there, and then make your mistakes fast. Get it all out there, and boom, and then you can go through the fix kind of process of that. See, I'm just the opposite. I don't do the creative writing so much, but I love telling people's stories. That's why I gravitated towards news. So my mind isn't as, I love the conversational storytelling of that, and the and getting that out there. So I don't think I'm a good creative writer. If I was going to write a screenplay, I think it would probably be based on true events, kind of a thing.
We need you in the news media.
Tell that story
with facts, that not fake, but facts. You'd have been a great journalist, and we still need those.
I feel like I was. I worked for PBS and NBC for a number of years, so I really enjoyed that. It was probably the I would say the highlight of my career path I've had. Of course, this day, the new highlight. But I really enjoyed that process of being a reporter, going out and talking like you do, going out and talking to people and meeting people and having those conversations, and then putting those stories on television. And it's a really great process.
It is. It's a tremendous, because they're sharing something that was part of them with you, and I think that's just absolutely fabulous. You can't even beat that. But since we get back to TV6 now a little bit, since this is just another part of your journey, what brought you here, and what would you like to try while you're here?
Well, what brought me here was really interesting. A friend of Lisa Hart's I worked with, and actually they worked together years ago, and Lisa, I guess, had mentioned to some people, hey, we're looking for a new host if you know anybody, and she emails me, and she knew I lived in the area, and I had the experience, and I might have some time kind of thing, and so I got an email, and I just literally called Lisa. She said, here's Lisa's number if you're interested, and so I called up Lisa, we talked for a little while, she says, you sound like this might be good, and so I came in and we started doing it, and I definitely missed doing this kind of thing, and the interviews, the talking, the kind of reporting stuff that he did in the past, and so I definitely had a little bit of an inkling to say, I'd like to give that a little, maybe just on the side kind of thing, so it's my new side hustle.
Well, wonderful, and you still keep your foot in the teaching?
Oh, absolutely.
So are you
I'm
off
still
now,
full-time. I'm off right now for the summer, but starting up on August 21st, I'll be here one less day a week because of my class schedules, but I'll still be doing Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and then Bobby's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Good.
So we're still going to have it all covered.
That's the neat part, too, is that it's not just one of you, so that you get really burned out or tired out or anything.
Yeah.
Now, going back to school again, because of the fact that it's your class now, do you every summer think about new things that you're going to add to give your students and prepare for that?
Absolutely, I do a lot of curriculum, kind of like just overhaul stuff and what's changed. I know this semester, with the writer's strike that's still going on while we're doing the show, and the writer's strike and the actor's strike. A lot of those things kind of come into play in the world of screenwriting in terms of we work. Our program works with. We work with a film department or with a theater department, and we do a film every semester. So now we have these actors who are going to be like, gosh, I'm ready to get out there and go into the world, but there's an actor's strike. What a great time to graduate with a theater degree, and that kind of thing. So I think those real world events kind of come into play. And I also do a broadcast journalism class, and of course, we focus on just the hyper-local Santa Ana College and the Santa Ana community, but the bigger topics we talk about, how do you cover the politics of the world? How do you cover the issues of this day? How do you do those things in a fair and balanced way? So really good, try to avoid the editorializing of things that you see so much.
One of the things that you mentioned briefly was the fact that when you talked briefly about social media and the fact that we don't need a censorship, but we do need gatekeepers.
Absolutely.
And kind of just talk about gatekeepers because you think about years ago when, they would cut your airtime off if you said something they didn't think you should. They would have a button right there to stop that.
That's a decency kind of thing, right?
Yes.
And there's laws in the FCC codes of decency and all those kinds of things. But I think that the important thing, I think one of the reasons why people say, oh, it's all so crazy out there, there's who knows who to trust anymore. There was a time, and I don't mean to be nostalgic about it, when you had gatekeepers in terms of the media, like, hey, this is real. We can, and there were those screaming voices on both sides that people didn't give a venue to and a stage to.
Yes.
And now the reality is that there's fantastic things that happen with social media. And in all, I think it's an overall good rather than overall bad.
Right.
But one of the things that was maybe people would judge as not the greatest thing in the world is that anybody with access to the media can be that voice. And there are no filters anymore in a large sense, right? So, well, this person said this. Well, who are they?
Yes.
And where do they come? Where's their background? I don't see a doctorate next to their name. Why are you believing them about, COVID and things like that? And so unless, and so the kind of the gatekeepers used to say, these are the experts, these are the real, we're going to take this above the fray and not let the kind of the fringe folks have that voice, because they shouldn't have that voice, because we, in our judgment, that's not real. We can disseminate. When I as a journalist would say, okay, what should be in the story? What do people need to know?
Right.
I'm not being a censor. I'm saying I have a minute and a half to tell the story. Here's the most important stuff. And so I think now what you don't have the gatekeepers, people can go on for an hour and a half long tangent on YouTube, and you click on that and you watch that.
Yes.
And this person said something. And I think sometimes when you put things on print, put things on television, it gives a validity to it that people don't realize that it doesn't really exist anymore. That doesn't, just because it was in writing doesn't make it true. And it used to be that to a sense.
Right, and that's the part that I think most people miss.
Yeah.
And in fact, I heard, which just, again, every time you hear things like that, you just get, I heard a guy he was a writer for Rolling Stone magazine, and he said that when they were covering the debate with Obama and something, he said that, and then we went into the spin room. And I'm like, oh my stars, they actually have a room there where they can spin what they think is right.
Here's how we make anything you might have heard negative into a positive.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah, so everybody does those things. They have people who are just literally there to spin for their candidate and their person.
Yeah. Well, it has been wonderful. We could go on forever. And,
well, why don't we? How many more episodes? What are we doing in October?
Yeah. And so whatever you bring fresh and new to TV6, we're pleased. And especially thank for bringing your person, because you are a lovely man. You got a great heart, beautiful smile. So thanks for coming, and thanks for being my guest.
Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
All right.
It's been great.
Bye-bye. Welcome to CJ's Chat Box. I am very honored today to have another one of our new co-hosts here in the village, Bobby Higgins.
Yes.
And her name is spelled B-O-B-B-I.
B-O-B-B-I for a girl.
Yes, and I understand that that was what your dad chose.
Yes, yeah. My dad is from Kansas, and he liked the name Bobby Jean.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I guess my mom must have agreed.
Oh, it sounds very Southern.
Yes, yes.
Was your daddy from the South?
He's from Kansas, yeah.
Oh, he was from there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we would go travel back there in our summers, drive the motorhome out, and hit Vegas on the way and go to Kansas.
Oh, naturally. So I was just, you didn't have to ever click your shoes together to get back to Kansas.
Never was there for a tornado. One time I was there when it snowed, which that was a real treat.
That would be a treat, but a tornado, those aren't fun. Yes. Anyway, you're new here to TV6. We're happy to have you here. Between you and Michael, with the smiles you have, it's beautiful to see. And talking with you, finding out a little bit about you, and same with Michael, both of you are genuinely happy. Yeah. You do have happy smiles. So, but a little bit about you growing up. I think you are also native Californian.
Yes, yeah. Pretty much born and raised when I was first born, lived in Huntington Beach, and my grandmother lived in Costa Mesa. So a lot of times it was either Huntington or Costa Mesa. Yeah. And I was born locally at Hoag Hospital.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And the other part that I found interesting about being Huntington, I lived in Huntington for 20 years when I was married, and I have a son. So he went to Edison, but you went to Huntington High.
Yes.
Which was a rival.
Yes.
But you said you liked going there wasn't it kind of one of the oldest schools that had a history?
Yeah, one of the things I loved about being at Huntington Beach High School was its history. And I think it was around since like 1908 or something like that. So had a long tradition of history. And I did a project, I think my senior year, about the old Huntington, the current Huntington, and what it was going to become. And so now when I go back and down to Main Street and PCH and to see the hotels that are built and to see how Main Street has changed, it's crazy. I saw all the diagrams way back in the 80s of what that was going to be, and now it is.
I love the old parks and the housing back in downtown Huntington, which are no longer there. I'm sure they've moved out and put up big hotels, as you said. So when you were did you start to know that you wanted to get before cameras when you were in middle school or high school, or when did you have a feeling for, I kind of like it out here? When did you get that?
Well, I always liked, didn't mind like giving speeches for your classes that you had to do. I was a part of the debate team for just a short while in high school, and my high school had a student-produced news show called Campus Update. So I got involved in that, and that's what kind of, I was like, wow, yeah, I think maybe I would like to do this as a career. I enjoy it.
Yeah. So there wasn't any fear, even like you said, of getting in front of people to do a speech or a book report. Back in the day, they used to do book reports orally, so that you'd have to read a book for English or something and then report about it in front of the class.
Right.
So you never ever got nervous over that?
I mean, I did. I can remember the knees knocking, but my dad always told me, he's like, oh, start out with a joke. So he'd always like help me have a joke to start off with, and you know, I can remember one time doing a presentation on fire or something, and I drew on the chalkboard behind me like what looked like a little flame, and everybody knew immediately what I was like, what am I talking about today? And they knew it, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, that felt good.
Yeah.
So I always enjoyed
Well,
that.
nice advice from your dad to lighten the crowd when you first start, so that they're uptight thinking, you know, what's she going to say, what's she going to be about? But the minute you come out and lighten them up a little bit, it's good to go.
Yes.
So
I did have one joke in college that did not go well, though.
and you never told it again?
Yeah. So I could never be a comedian.
Oh, I see. You stick to the facts. But you talked a little bit about this project that you had in high school, so that you put on shows, plays. What was it actually?
Yeah, it was like a 3-part series that I did for Campus Update. As students, we came up with our own. If you wanted to, you know, get on camera, then you needed to come up with a story of what you were going to do and work on. So I came up with this idea to do the history of the Huntington Beach High School. So I went, and there was some teachers on the campus, you know, that had been there for many, many years. So I interviewed some of those teachers, and that was kind of the history, and got a lot of old pictures, and that was the first part of the series. And then the second series was, you know, what Huntington Beach is today, and what it offers, and then the third part was where it's going, what's going to happen in the future.
What's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, given that, you got to interview a few people but then you had to do a lot of research.
Yes.
Did you enjoy that part?
I did, yeah.
Digging in the archives and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. And back then, you know, you had to go through the film, get the tapes, and
what are the fish? What was that called?
Yeah.
I can't even remember, but I had.
It's crazy how easy
Microfiche.
Students have it today. Yeah.
Microfiche.
To
now
find
you just
information.
Google.
Right.
Just go. You don't have to go to the library and look in encyclopedias. We spend a lot of time in the library looking up things, but now you just Google anything.
Yeah.
Some things you shouldn't Google, but everybody does. So that part, did you kind of think about doing, because it wasn't like acting stuff, but it was more of research and then promoting it and telling, so more like broadcasting? Was that where you really were going to go?
Exactly.
In that
Yeah.
field?
Yeah. I wanted to be a news reporter.
Okay.
And so I went to USC, and my very first internship was on a news show, and I was actually working under the sports broadcast, the person who did the sports of the news show.
Okay.
It was 11 p.m. news, and then I kind of learned through that internship that I didn't like the news as much as I thought I would.
Oh, but that's the whole point of internship.
Yes.
Is to find out, this shoe doesn't fit as I thought it would. So, but in that line, what I find interesting, because then along the way, was it after college that you met Paul, your husband?
So he was actually my technically
that's where you were
boss
interning.
of my very
Yeah.
first internship. So Paul we started dating, and he also had his own production company and covered a lot of sports. And so as we started dating, he says, you know, come on down, come see the sports, come see what we're doing. And so then I moved away from news or that kind of stuff, and really got my background and everything I learned, you know, on the sports platform with Paul.
So did you get to go interview coaches or players or both?
Yeah, in the very beginning, it started out, I was just there at the football game, and they're like, hey, we need somebody in the truck, you're doing graphics. So
wow.
I started in the truck doing graphics, and then eventually after a couple of, and that year, I believe it was, I did like a halftime report. So I would go out and during the week go out and shoot and do stories on the band or the cheerleaders or the other aspects of high school football games that don't usually get coverage.
Oh, nice.
And then within like 2-3 years, then I worked into being a sideline reporter.
Oh,
so
how
I was a
nice.
sideline reporter for the football season.
So it was mainly sports, though?
Mainly sports,
Yeah,
yes.
and-
But occasionally, sometimes, I also sold advertising to, that was kind of how I made money, was I started selling advertising for the show. So I did a lot of that.
So you got into marketing?
Yes.
Well, if I ever meet your husband, I will have to say thank you, because I'm sure you've said it more than once, because if you were going in this direction and then you interned over here and found out, oh, I like this better, but then the things that you did while you were there working with him, it's like graphics here, and marketing over here, and then sideline report. I mean, that to me is exciting, and I'm sure it was for you too.
That was definitely his philosophy, is to learn every area that you can. I mean, I learned to run camera back then.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big camera on your shoulder, and then you had a pack that you carried, which was pretty heavy as well. And so in the beginning, it was quite shaky, but I got better, and the cameras started to get lighter. And so I ran camera as well. There was times that I edited and would edit, like I edited the highlight packages that I did. And then I learned quickly that, okay, I don't really like editing so much. I don't want to be locked in a box for weeks on end. So, but I would edit our commercials, so a 30-second or 60-second commercial, that only takes a week, that was enjoyable. Or if it was something like, wedding videos or birthday videos. Like I enjoyed the more personal stuff as opposed to sitting down to do a 30-minute sports show.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being better than, and I agree, the fact that you should know everything that's going on within that business so that if somebody's not there, they don't have to call it all off, you can go fill in. The fact that you learn while doing and have a boss that's patiently knowing that this is her first time at this, just give her a break, that you learn that so much stuff. Now, didn't you guys then, you got married, right?
Yes.
But you still work together.
Yeah.
Didn't you create like a company or a business that? Yeah,
so our company is called Athletes in Motion Sports Television, and so technically he had started it before him and I met, and then as we started dating and growing the business, things really took off, and then one of our shows got picked up by ESPN when they first started ESPN2. And then that became a big deal because then we started traveling. So we were doing the local sports here at home on Channel 3 on Cox Cable, but then we were also traveling the country doing shows for ESPN2. And then ESPN created the X Games. And so then that's when things like really took off, and we were producing just so much programming for them. And then Paul was also hired as an announcer on a lot of the stuff. So he was traveling double time. At one point he literally was sitting on a donut on a plane because he had been traveling so much.
Oh my goodness.
So we were busy for a number of years there. We were really busy.
Did you enjoy the traveling?
I did. I loved it. And then the very cool thing about it too is my dad ended up coming on with us, and he was cameraman number 1. So
nice.
So and that was just great memories and experiences that I never would have otherwise had.
A family affair.
Yeah, one of my favorite shoots is we went to Indianapolis for a race car school, and I was supposed to be one of the drivers along with my husband and one of our other camera guys, and then kind of at the last minute my dad kind of heard about it or whatever, and then it was like, yeah, we could use you on this shoot, let's bring you too, and then I was like, well, Dad, you can take my seat in the race car. I don't really need to do it. So I was doing more of the filming while the 3 guys were doing the racetrack. So that was a really fun
It does
shoot.
sound like fun. And I can see where your husband would get a little tired of it after a while, because traveling sounds good until you're doing it nonstop.
Yeah.
So since you're traveling the first years of your marriage, when did you decide, or didn't you decide it just happened to start having children and raising a family?
We were together 5 years before we got married, and then it was like another 9 years before we started having children. So we had definitely a wonderful courtship and time together and time to go experience and do things. And we were ready by the time the kids came, but we were very naive and thinking, our lifestyle is not going to change. We'll still be able to do everything. Yeah, well, and at this point now the traveling was starting to broaden into Canada and Mexico, and
oh dear,
and the things that you have to pack up for an infant is just unbelievable.
And passports? Did you not have to have passports then too?
Well, at that time, this is right before 9/11, so Mexico you could just use a birth certificate. And actually, what ended up being like my last travel was. We were going to Ibiza, Spain, and it was the very first time that I bought the baby his own seat. And packed everything up, which is
a lot.
Seems like weeks to pack up for a baby. And you get to the LAX, and we go to check in, and they're like, where's your passport? We're like, oh, here, birth certificate. No. And this was 1 month right after 9/11 had just happened. So
why.
they were like, no, you have to have a passport for the baby. And we were like,
oh no.
so my husband went on the trip and with the crib in the room, and me and the baby never went. And then at that point, I kind of stopped traveling.
Yeah.
At that point, he was just a year old and was getting really a lot harder to travel with him.
But your firstborn is quite famous. He's PJ here. He's one of the people here in our camera area.
Yes, and because of him is why I found out about this job. I heard him talking about it, and I'm like, wow, I should submit my resume and see what happens.
Yes, he's a sweetheart. Did he ever travel with you then when he was small, or?
He did a little bit, yeah. When
did he get the bug then?
We were using him on local stuff all the time. He was 9 years old interviewing baseball players or whatever. And I think the first travel trip he did was to Buffalo, New York when he was about 12. And then somewhere when he became a teenager, then they were doing a lot of shoots in Oregon. I think it was like the jet skis out in the ocean or something. Yeah, like every year he would go on those trips and help out. So he just got back from South Carolina. My husband, my son, and my daughter were all in South Carolina doing Slippery Stairs for ESPN.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
My goodness. So yeah, he had the bug quite early, and again, hands-on experience.
Yes.
So you had PJ's your oldest.
Yes.
And then you have girls.
And then my daughter comes next. And so she's 20, and then my third and the rest are all boys. The next is 17, 14, and 12.
Oh my stars.
I just wanted one more girl.
Yeah.
I wanted to go through the girl thing one more time, because literally by the time she was 3, she was all boy. At that point, I'd be like, yeah, I have 3 boys.
Yeah, well, because when you're playing with them, I mean, nobody's going to play house.
Yeah.
They want to play what you want to play. But that's it. And then you did stay home for quite a while and just raise the family.
I did,
because you wanted
5
to do
children,
that.
and I would work on occasion as things came up. I can remember one time we did a college football teams that were here at I think it was like Anaheim Angel Stadium, and it was a big deal that these college teams came out to compete here.
Okay.
And so I did the sideline reporting for those games, and my number 3 was a little baby at the time, and it was only like a 2-week span that I was kind of gone a lot, and I wasn't even gone that much, but literally after that, if I even turned my back to him, he would start crying for the next 2 months. He was just, didn't want mom to be gone.
Home. Well, it shows how important you are.
Yes.
And the fact to be home, and that you were willing. And the other part that I hear, and it's obvious, that you don't lose what you have. You could go out and do it even after you'd had a couple of children, that you could go out interviewing, feel very comfortable, and it's obvious that you're very comfortable being here, so that you don't lose that even if you don't use it for a while.
Right.
So that's important.
Yeah, some of the technology has changed. Like when it comes to editing, the way I edited, 15 years ago, it's different. So I might have to be a little, teach me this new, this is different than the Media 100 that I used to use or whatever. But yeah, it's I can pick up things pretty quickly. So.
When you did, I don't know that you did it very long then, but you said you started there with graphics. Was that ever something you thought you'd like or pursue, or was that not really?
Yeah, I honestly, I was having so much fun with my boyfriend that it didn't even feel like work to me. So, and I was just happy to, where are we going next? What are we doing next? Where do you need me? Whatever it was that was needed, it's, just direct me where you need me to go. I'll be there and do whatever.
That is very commendable.
Yeah, I remember
to do that.
Right before we got married, we were doing an event where they surf one day in the ocean and then they ski, snowboard the next day up at Big Bear.
Wow!
And so I was doing a pre-shoot and going up the mountain and had the air conditioner on my face, and I think the stress of the wedding and whatever, and I ended up getting Bell's palsy for
really?
a couple of weeks. I guess from the air conditioner hitting me and the stress of it all.
Yeah.
So, but
that had to be scary. That had to be scary.
But I was like, oh, you needed me to go and produce this event? I'll go and be there and produce the event.
Well, your willingness to do whatever, even though you may not know what you're doing until you've been shown, but your willingness and openness to be able to do that is commendable to say the least. So are your daughter is in this business?
She is as well, yeah. All my kids, my husband does like a summer camp and other camps through the school year to teach school-age children all the way up through high school children and high school kids. And so all my kids have been involved in that since they were little. And so they all actually know how to edit and get in front of a microphone. And yeah.
That is
yeah. My youngest he's like a natural broadcaster. I look at him and I go, I swear that must be how my husband was.
Oh my goodness. Well, you said that he does camps like this.
Yes.
Does he go to schools and presents these camps so that people, teachers, principals, whoever is running the school knows, this is something you ought to go to because I've seen this talent or skill in you?
Yeah, well, he has an amazing reputation in this community. He was on Channel 3 for like 30 years.
Okay.
And covering lots of schools and sports and all that. And so he's been he was at J. Sarah High School for a few years and then moved over to Santa Margarita High School and oversees the broadcast program there. So his camps are held out of Santa Margarita High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone were in a school, Aliso Viejo, Laguna Hills, whatever, and would they, if you said, you ought to call Paul and find out about his camps, because seeing the potential in someone, because when I interviewed Michael, he also said that he didn't realize he could write until his aunt commented. And sometimes you need someone outside to see. So sometimes, and he said a teacher had really used his paper as an example, so that really meant a lot to him. So again, I really believe in teachers recognizing and encouraging talent.
I was just at a Santa Margarita Moms Club event in May, so the end of the school year, and I had two moms. It was all about the seniors that day, the senior moms, and two of the moms stood up and they said to me, "Please tell your husband, like this program changed my son's life, and because of this program, that's why he's going to the college he's going to, and he wants to pursue this as a career." So
that's the kind of feedback you want.
Yes.
But that's the kind of thing, because I love being a networker. So if it's like, okay, you guys, I like pointing to where they need to go. Because again, you never know when it's going to be the exact timing for that person to have someone say, you've got what it takes. You just need a little, rough around the edges.
Yep.
But that is so important for the kids for today, no matter what their age, whether they're in junior high or high school or even college.
Absolutely. To have that push, it means everything.
You got to have that. You got to have the support, but you have to have somebody recognize that you have that talent. And sometimes, your mom or your dad or your grandparents may tell you you're going to be the best doctor or lawyer or whatever, and you don't have any sense of that whatsoever.
Right.
But then when somebody outside the family says something, then you tend to hear it a bit, more clear. So I'm glad that that is available and that all you need to do. What's it called, the actual camp?
It's a sports broadcasting camp with Paul Higgins.
And they hold it in Santa Margarita?
And they hold it, at Santa Margarita High School.
Well, that's real local here for Orange
I
County.
remember, you're reminding me of a story about Kelly Clarkson, that she was a high school student and was just singing in the hallway, and a teacher said to her, "You have a beautiful voice, why aren't you on the choir," or whatever it was, and she says, "I can't sing." She had no idea that, and look at her today.
Yeah.
So true.
There's something, one of the things when I was working at a church as a director of education, you really need to know how to recruit people because you need volunteers for everything, whether it's Sunday school teaching or whatever. And that gift, if you will, of being able to see talent in someone, that you can recognize it, which, you ought to be a Sunday school teacher, for the adults, not for the kids. No, I can't do that. I know you can because I've seen you do it. And they trust you. That's the key word. That once they trust that, well, maybe you're right. And they try it, and then they go, wow, I would have never known that had you not seen it in me and encouraged me and it supported me. So that's vital, but you have to have good teachers that are open to seeing that in kids, and then supporting and encouraging, maybe telling the parents. Sometimes they are too busy to even understand that their child is really a talented person that just needs a little support coming from them. So when you came here, do you have any ideas or thoughts about what you would like to try? Something new, something different? Expand what they're doing here? Have you thought about anything like that, or you haven't run that by Paul yet?
I haven't. I knew coming here, one of the pros in wanting to take the job is I knew that it was definitely going to grow me, and you know, because I haven't had a steady job in this sense, like in you know, a number of years, and so and it's always been with my husband. So I knew this was going to be, you know, different, where I'm more on my own and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although it does feel like such a great family here that it doesn't feel any different. I feel just as supported here. Matter of fact, Michael has been, I was just telling my mom this the other day, I'm like, you know, it could have been a competitive thing or something, but actually it's just the opposite. You know, he prepares the show for me when I'm coming in on Wednesdays. I prepare the show for him when he's coming in on Fridays, and it's just really, everything's been really great.
Yeah.
But as far as changes or new things I want to add or bring in, I've kind of been trying to just get through the summer because my kids are home from school, and it's a little overwhelming, everything, you know, right now. But you know, once September gets rolling and things get more on a routine for me, then
well, and also
we'll
you
see
have
where
to
it goes.
stay at something long enough to see how it works, and to see where there's maybe a little niche over here that might, maybe we could try that over here.
Yeah.
You don't know that until you've kind of been here a while, which is what you're doing now. This is what, your third month?
Yeah, I started in June, but like late June, so. Yeah, well, I've done a couple of videos for the sunrise sunset, just because we happened to be down in Laguna Beach, and so I took a video of the sunset going down, and then some like motorized parasailers going by, and so Mark Weiss was saying, he's like, yeah, he goes, this is kind of like your signature, and I'm like, oh, I didn't.
Nice.
I didn't think about that, you know. So.
Well, I used to live in Laguna, and I'm not a beach person per se, but boy, to see a sunset on the beach in Laguna, the purples, the oranges, I mean, it's unbelievable. So if you got that on camera, that's going to be something special.
I'm a Pisces, so I'm a water sign. So yeah, there's something about the ocean that definitely just calms me and makes me feel so peaceful. So I try to go as often as I can.
The thing that I remember the most vividly, because I lived up in the hills, up from the main street, and at night, which was amazing to me because there's traffic all day, there's always tourists, but at night you could hear the waves crashing against the shore, and you could hear the seals honking.
Really? Wow.
And it would like put you to sleep because you'd hear that crash. So there is something, again, very calming about the ocean. And even though I don't like necessarily going in it, because you have to appreciate and respect the power of those waves, because they can take you under for sure.
Yes. Once I was an adult and I was trying to go swimming in Hawaii, and that's when I realized I am not a good swimmer like I thought I was. And so I'm very cautious about going into the ocean.
Were your kids ever surfers or anything?
Yeah, they love the water. They go in, they boogie board, they surf, they skimboard. We go out to Havasu, and they'll do all that behind the boat as well. Take their surfboard or their skimboard behind the boat, and
got to have strong legs for any type of
they're all
skiing
natural
or surfing.
athletes for sure.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a wonderful, wonderful time doing this with you today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Maybe we'll do this down the road a bit when you've come up with some. Again, I like the fact that I get to interview you instead of you get to interview your people, how you normally do here. But maybe when you come up with something new that you want, we can do another interview, and then you can tell me, guess what? We're starting this now.
Okay, wonderful.
I can find out all about it. But anyway, it's been very, very good here. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right.